Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin'. February is coming, so today we're talking about the top baits that we rely on to catch fish in February. I love fishing in February. February represents change. It represents hope for the end of winter. You know, it's still cold. You know, you've still got a lot of winter left to go. Some of those fish are going to be lethargic, but February represents change. There are fish making moves in February. The very beginnings of transitions towards spawning areas. Fish pulling up shallower on warm afternoons. Fish moving up and working their way along secondary points. And fish making big moves if you happen to get a big flush of water, if a big storm comes through. So there's a lot going on in February. As a result, the baits that we throw is a huge shakeup from the winter time. It's a major return to power fishing. Now, typically this video is 5 baits. We've got a few more than that today, but I'm keeping it as simple as I can. I thought the best way to do this would just be to grab one of my day boxes and just run through it for you. I've got a few categories. Category number 1, jerk baits. Let's start right there. Let me pull the jerk baits out of here. Got 2 jerk baits. So in February, in the afternoons, you'll have fish that are feeling that warmth and they start moving up. And that's a prime time to catch them. So I focus my attention on shallower jerkbaits, because if I'm going to pick up a jerkbait, I'm typically chasing those first fish that have begun to make a move. Now, granted, the first day in February, if it's freezing cold, you should probably still be focused on some January baits. But as soon as we start getting into the month and you're feeling those changes, you get one of those days where your hoodie's a little warm on you, that's that day to start branching out and trying. So I like to go up shallow, throw a jerkbait. 2 baits, two of these are the same. So 2 baits for you. The Megabass Vision 110, just the standard of all jerkbaits. Such a bread and butter bait, such a fish catcher. This time of year, I tend to focus on either flashier colors or bold colors. I want to draw a reaction strike from fish that are up. The other one is the Shimano World Minnow. It's got that flash boost in it. It's got a ton of flash already. But again, I'm focusing on those bold colors because a lot of times these fish that are moving in and moving up have not been bothered in winter. Sure, I mean, there's guys out there winter fishing, but nothing like spring. So these fish come in, they're aggressive, they want to feed, and an aggressive, flashy, hard-moving jerkbait with a lot of roll can trigger a reaction bite out of those fish. Number 2, the Lipless. Man, I love throwing a Lipless this time of year. Again, 2 Lipless, I keep it simple. These are all the same, 3 colors, but these are the Jackal TN70, and then the other one, the Lucky Craft LV500. Both of these are extremely heavy for their size. They're very small profiled, but 3/4 ounce baits. These are baits that you can chuck and wind, you can cover water, but what we really like to do with them is throw them out and do that slow fishing where you pull your slack and that bait will vibrate up and then you let it fall back to bottom. Vibrate up, fall back to bottom. Almost like aggressively working a jig. And when it's doing that flutter, those fish will come in and just suck that thing. So both of these baits are very specific. I mean, there are hundreds of Lipless on the market, but these are very specific baits for me in that they fall very fast for their size. Again, they're very heavy and they're very small. So they'll crash back to bottom really aggressively, and that reaction and that loud sound is the deal. The way I choose between them is I try both. You know, Tim and I lived on Clear Lake for years. The LV500, it's the deal there. here on the Tennessee River, the Jackal TN70. It's the deal here. Their sound is just a little different. Just a little different, but on any given day, one or the other will crush them. So I keep both on hand. Man, that lipless bite is fun. I'm looking forward to getting back on that. Next one, blade bait. Extremely similar, right? But silent. So again, two versions of a blade. Now, if you're not familiar with our videos, in the video description, I will link all of these baits for you by category. The jerk baits, here's the two we throw, favorite colors. If there's room, I'll even give you the hook upgrades that we do. So we link everything down there, as well as some budget gear or specific rods that we use for a specific technique. There's always more information in the description than there is in the actual video itself. So two blade baits, the Demiki Vault, and then the Mega Bass, the Dyna Response. Again, similar concept, just like with the lipless, but they're different. The Demiki Vault has a very aggressive, very hard thump. The Dyna Response by Mega Bass, because it has this tail on it, is much more subtle. It's a much tighter vibration. It's one of those things where you have to try both. If you're catching fish on both, keep going until one stands out. But there are a lot of days where I'll get out, and if I'm just throwing one, I'm thinking, oh, there's not a blade bite. Switch to the other one, boom, 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 start catching them. And it really does go back and forth. I have had unbelievable days on both of these baits, and both of them have a place in my arsenal every single day as we roll into spring. I'll literally have them both tied on and on deck. Next, shallow cranks. Man, it's good to get to say that again. I love cranking. I love shallow cranking. I love square bills. I love flat sides. I love this time of year. Just a few for you. I mean, I've got a bunch of colors in here, right? I've got a little bit of chartreuse, a little bit of shad, some cross, some ghost red, a variety of colors, but just a few baits. The big three are these guys right here. First one, Spro Little John. Couple colors. One more bold than the other. If I could only have one crankbait color in the spring, it's that really ghosty blood cross. Yeah, it's sort of clear, but it's still red. Like here, cold-blooded in the River to Sea Biggie. I love that color. If I could only have one, it's that. But if the water gets dingier, like last year, I had pretty dingy water in the spring, then I'm all about those red and oranges, that bolder, harsher color. But bait number one, that Spro Little John, flat-sided bait. It's not silent, it's got a ball in it, but it's almost silent. The low thud of that ball is extremely low. It's not like a rattle, but it's just a low thud. That is such a deadly bait. I've lost count of the fish I've caught with that thing. The other one is the River to Sea Biggie. That's my bread and butter. That bait is loud, it's obnoxious, comes with size 2 trebles. So if I know I'm gonna be around big ones, I throw that, because if I get them, I've got them on big hooks. And then the last one, the OG. That guy right there, that garage crank, again, flat-sided bait. I crushed with them last year and the year before. I got just a little bit of time with it the year before and wailed on them when we had a snowstorm come through, of all things. But just a deadly bait, that slim. And then one more that I wanted to add. This is the Rocco. So it's another Rapala. This is the slim, this is the Rocco. They're both balsa baits. The slim is a little bit larger. It's flat-sided, just a totally different profile, right? This one is a true square bill. This one's a round bill. But here's the biggest thing I wanted to say. The Rocco, I have not actually gotten to take this bait through spring yet. I started playing with it in the fall. But it is very rare where a bait just leaps out at me as strongly as the Rocco did. This bait, the reason why I brought it up is that its start-up speed is remarkable. So I like to, in the springtime, when I'm throwing these baits, I'll be throwing up shallow, and I'm not just cranking them back to the boat. I'm not just slow rolling, or I'm not just burning. I like to run them, pause, burn, 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 pause, just like I do the tactical crank when we're cold water cranking with a deep crank. Burn, 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 pause, burn, 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 pause. And this bait has such a fast startup. And what I mean is when you first start to pull a bait, there's gonna be a moment there before it starts to vibrate. This thing starts up so fast. It's like a chatterbait almost with the way it just immediately starts going. And it allowed me in the fall around cover to be super aggressive, not just burn, 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 pause, burn, burn, pause. It was like twitch, pause, twitch, twitch, pause. 2 handle turns, pause, 1 handle turn, pause. And I was able to get this thing to just dart right around cover and get these fish to come out and lash out on it. And that was very unique. So for the last couple of years, I've smashed on the slim along with these other baits. But this year, I'm very excited as the water continues to warm. I thought this might be the only real opportunity I had to include it for you before we were in the thick of it. So I wanted to bring that up because I'm very excited about that. All right, so we've got jerkbaits, lipless, blade baits, shallow cranks, swim baits. And I've got a couple more here that's more geared towards the pond guy, the guy on smaller bodies of water, or the guy who doesn't really like to power fish. We'll get to that. But swim baits, I've got 2 for you. Again, fish are moving up. They're still going to, especially if the water gets murky, be around hard cover. They'll get up on the edges of laydowns. They'll get on dock pilings. They'll get on rocks on secondary points. But places where you can pretty well figure there might be one here. There might be one over there. There might be one right back there on that tree. Just key spots that you can throw straight to. You're not just fan casting. 2 baits that I really like this time of year. One is the River to CS Waver, the 168. It's a cover glide, smaller glide bait, super aggressive movements. We're able to really dance it and twitch it and work it right around the edges of cover without covering a lot of water. So without leaving the space, I'm able to really dart it and work it right near the fish. And I have crushed all the way through the cold water months and into the spring. Tim and I now for, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years have crushed every spring with an S-Waver. It's unreal. And then the other one is a mag draft. Both the 6-inch and the 8-inch mag draft. But we did a lot of damage last spring with the 6-inch. Built a lot of confidence in that bait. The thing with the mag draft is it has it's got like a happy speed. So throw it out, start rolling it, and go a little slower or a little faster until you find just that perfect tail kick. And once you've got that, your speed is set. And I just cover water. I run it right over the tops of laydowns, skip it under docks, run it down the side of trees, or just fan cast it back on those shallow flats where fish might be pulling up in the afternoons to poke around. I'll just fan cast over that. You're presenting a big meal. They'll come out and get that thing. And again, I throw both the 6-inch and the 8-inch. The 8-inch has more drawing power. It'll pull fish from farther. It will tend to get an even bigger bite. But I've caught a ton of fish on the 6. Caught a bunch of spots, smallmouth, and of course largies on it. So if you're on a smaller body of water or a spot fishery or a smallmouth fishery, don't be afraid to throw that 6-inch as well. Last of the moving bait category. So 6 categories instead of 5. I apologize. The one that doesn't fit in a day box is the A-rig. This is the Tactical Flex. This is Tim and I's rig that we built with Hog Farmer. Just a deadly, deadly way to catch them all the way through fall, winter, spring. It's nothing new, but we're just continuing to throw it this time of year. This time of year, I throw almost exclusively 1 1/8 ounce heads. You see how small that head is? And you see how small that hook is in comparison. It's not a giant gaff of a hook. This allows me to fish it extremely shallow, the same places that I'll fish a square bill, a jerkbait, a swim bait. I can throw it very shallow, fish it effectively. So I use 3 1/8 ounce heads, and then my dummies have no weight at all. That's it. So 3/8 of an ounce is all that's pulling that rig to bottom. And I'm able to fish it really shallow, really effectively. I can fish it quickly if I want to, but I can also slow roll it. And it's just an amazing way to catch them in the spring. And then again, that 1/8, which is my favorite size, has a slightly smaller hook. Still a very heavy wire hook, but slightly smaller. That's it in the head of a 4.8 Kitech. That allows me to go to a lighter line and to a lighter rod. So I'm not killing myself trying to, no one wants to beat themselves up on the water. And that's why a lot of people don't like A-rigging. It's hard work. The way we throw it, it's not hard work. I can throw it on braid to 20 pound. And I can throw it on a 7.5 foot medium heavy rod. It's not like I'm throwing it on a giant swim bait rod and reel or a musky setup or something. A regular jig rod, whipping that thing around, catching fish. I really enjoy that method of fishing. And then last but not least, my last little category over here, well, I do have one underspin stuffed in this box just in case. I'm gonna mention it since it's there. Owner flashy swimmer paired up to a 4.8 Kitech. If the fish do start moving shallow, a lot of times where this will happen, or where this will shine for me, is when we get a big flush of water. We get a big storm, a lot of rain starts coming in, that rainwater starts coming down the creeks, blows out into the lake, you get all that chocolate milk water, but it brings a lot of debris with it too. I love to run back to that water and throw in the moving water. But a lot of times, this time of year, because the lakes are still filling, there'll be a lot of laydowns, debris, junk in the backs of those pockets. So I use that flashy swimmer because it's a weedless hook. And I'm able to fish it right up shallow on those fish. But that was just tossed in here as a maybe in case I was gonna catch a fish on that. But the other two, shaky head and a Texas rig. That's what's taken up the last few compartments in this box. Old school fishing, right? This, for the guy who, one, either doesn't want to power fish, who enjoys slow fishing, or for the guy who's on a smaller body of water, or maybe you're bank fishing and you only have so many spots. So it's not like you want to walk up, throw a crankbait 3 times and now your day's over, right? You want to slow fish. This is the time of year that a shaky head and a Texas rig come back into my arsenal. I have one place in particular right by my house that is just a shaky head spot. I don't know what it is. And it starts in February like clockwork. There's no fish there in the winter, and then all of a sudden, boom, there they are. They just appear. They're making a slow transition back to the shallows, and they stop on this little spot. And the only thing I catch those fish on is a shaky head, and I can catch them every day doing it. So the shaky head, I like a straight tail worm, right? This is the T-Mac. It's our favorite shaky head worm. I went with Bama bug. Little bit of June bug, little bit of green pumpkin. It's just a really good in-between color. You can fish it in clear water, you can fish it in muddy water. It's really nice to have one bait that can do that. And then, you know, something for the Texas rig, something like, this is a big bite. Just a small curly tail worm on that Texas rig. Slow pulling that thing, shaking it on bottom can be really effective. This is, again, February, I like to power fish. I like to take these handful of techniques and just go. But this is the time of year where if you prefer slower or you're on a fishery where you need to be slower, it really comes back into play now. You can go back out there and start catching fish consistently again, and it's really fun. So guys, down in the video description, again, I'll link all this gear in the order that I talked about it, give you favorite colors, all that stuff, just to make it as simple as possible. But February is that transition back into serious fishing. Guys are gonna slowly start trickling back onto the water. For the most part, it's still the hardcore guys, and they're on a wide open bite by mid-February, and for the most part, there's not a lot of people around. We're just out here thrashing them. So get out on the water, catch some of these fish. These are very effective ways to do it. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.